Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
I'm going to disconnect the battery and use a 10mm wrench. And put that out of the way. Before we pull the distributor out, we're going to want to pull the cap off so we can see the orientation of the rotor. So I'm going to loosen up the bolts on the cap with a Phillips head screwdriver. And these bolts should stay with the cap. We'll just set that aside. So before I pull the distributor out, I want to set the engine to top dead center. So I'm going to use a 1 1/16 socket and a ratchet. I'm going to go down to the crank. And then just turn the engine. As I turn the engine, you can see the rotor is turning. You want to turn this clockwise. All right. Okay. So this is where, right here, this second mark in is top dead center. You want that lined up with this little tang that comes out of the timing cover. So that's your top dead center. This right here is 5 degrees after top dead center. This is 5 degrees before top dead center. This is 10 degrees, and then this is 15 degrees before top dead center. So that mark right there is top dead center. This engine is timed at top dead center right now, so before we pull the distributor up, I want to mark the location of where the rotor is. So I'm going to make a line right here. And that lines up that part of the rotor. So when we go to install the new one, we want the new one lined up just like that when it's all the way down. All right, at this point, I can disconnect the electrical connectors. Push. There's a little retainer underneath this connector. You push it in. When it's pushed in, that releases the lock. And I can pull it out. Oops. This is how it pushes in, just like that. That releases it. And there's a connector right here. I'm going to disconnect this connector. All right, I'm going to use a straight blade screwdriver. I'm just going to push this retainer in. And that will release the connector. Once I push that in, push down on that center piece and then disconnect the connector. So if we were going to reuse this distributor, we had to take it out of the way for a certain reason. We can mark the base of the distributor right there. I just used a felt tip pen. That's the base of the distributor, and this is a plate that's connected to the engine. That would give you a baseline for where your timing is right now, but we're going to replace the distributor, so it doesn't really matter for us to remark that. All right, so now we're going to take the distributor bolt out. There's a 12mm bolt right down here, and this is the bolt you would loosen up if you had to adjust the timing as well. So I'm going to use a socket, a universal, and an extension and a ratchet. We'll loosen this up. Once it's loose, be careful not to drop it. Be easier to grab the bolt with a magnet if you had a magnet. So pull that bolt out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up slowly. Now that's, before I pull it out of the way, this is where the rotor was when it came up. So what I want to do is mark it right there. Because when I put the new distributor in, I want to set the rotor to that location so that when I drop it down, the rotor will move over to the top dead center location. And that is because of the splines down here. When it drops down, the splines are going to twist the rotor to that location. All right, so we're going to show you how to replace the coil in this distributor. We had the distributor out of the car, but you may be able to do this job in the vehicle. So we're going to start and we're going to take off this rotor. Take this screw out of the back side. It's a Phillips head screw. We'll pull the rotor off like that. Then there's two Phillips head screws right here. Take a Phillips head screwdriver, take this screw out. And we'll take this screw out right here. It's going to pull this cover off. That cover can come off. And then we can disconnect the electrical connector right here. Take a straight blade screwdriver, just pry up underneath here. Pull that connector off and out of your way. Then we're going to take this Phillips head screw out of the center here. This may be kind of hard to get out, so pull this off. I'm going to carefully be careful not to bend this plate. That plate is going to come off when we pull this off right here. So we'll take these Phillips head screws out of here and one right here. And then pull this up. This plate will come out of your way. And then this piece can come up. And then these two Phillips head screws right here. And then this Phillips head screw. All right, so this screw stripped a little bit, so I could take a flat blade screwdriver and I just hammered it on a little bit. And then I can twist this screw out. Once that screws out, I take my coil. Just slide it up. You can slide these wires up and out of the way a little bit. And there's the coil. Here's our old coil that came out of the vehicle. Here's the new coil from 1aauto.com. As you can see, the terminals are the same. This, where the spark comes out, is the same. The mounting holes are all the same. Get yours at 1aauto.com and you'll be ready to rock and roll. All right, to install the new coil, we're just gonna slide it in like this. Pull these wires up a little bit, get those out of the way. Once that's centered in there, then we can push these wires back down. Then we can take these bolts and we're going to screw these in and use the Phillips head screwdriver. And this one that's stripped, I'll just use the straight head screwdriver. Once they're both in, you can snug it down. Snug it tight. And same with this one. Snug this one down. Snug that down tight. Next we can install this. I'm gonna just slide this out of the way. Keep in mind when installing this disc, you want to remember which side was up. For ours, this side was up. And then you're going to pull this up just a little bit. Slide the disc in there. This takes a little bit of coordination. And then when it's slid, get that lined up down there. Then we can reinstall this top piece. Line this up. And then we can install the screw. And hold this. You're going to snug this up real tight. And then we'll install these two screws. Go in here. Get those both started. Once those are started, snug these up. Just like that. Make sure this disc spins properly. And we can reinstall this wiring harness. Get these connectors lined up to the coil. Push that down. Make sure the wires are out of the way of the disc. And then we can install this cover. Just like that. Install a Phillips head screw right here. Then install the other Phillips head screw on this side. Snug those down. We can put our rotor back on. Put the screw back in for the rotor. And then if you did this on the car, you could just put the cap back on. If you took the distributor out, then you could reinstall the distributor. Okay, line this up. Okay, so that looks pretty close. I'm just gonna try this again. I move this just a little bit this way. So if I put this off a spline, it's pretty obvious that I'm not close to where I need to be. So this looks good going down there. And then if I went up again, let's just see if I moved it over. I moved it over one more spline. Okay, so it's going to be pretty significant that you're not even close to the mark if you were off. So doing that there, I'm confident that that is exactly where it's supposed to be for top dead center. All right, now we're going to reinstall the bolt. Be careful not to drop this. Slide this in here. We'll take our 12mm socket, universal extension and ratchet. And we'll get this started. I'm really not going to tighten it up too much, just a little bit, because we're going to have to adjust this afterwards. Just snug so it won't turn. I can loosen it up while the engine's running. Next we can plug this electrical connector in. Just slide this down here. Line it up, push it in, lock it in. I'm just going to grab a screwdriver straight and try to pull that lock out so it stays secured. And then there's a little retainer that holds this electrical connector on over here. And this goes this way. Just slide that on here, just like that. And then we'll take this electrical connector, connect this one right there. Lock that in. All right, now we'll take our distributor cap. Now the distributor cap goes on this way. You can see this is where the coil feeds. Right there is the coil. Line that up like that. And we can tighten these two Phillips head screws down. And this Phillips head screw. Make sure this wire's out of your way. You don't want to pinch that wire. Just snug on the cap. And we're going to transfer the wires over. The caps are marked, so cylinders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the new cap is marked as well. So we can just take these wires off. Move them over to here. 1, 2, 3. 4. 5, and 6. We're going to reconnect the negative posts on the battery. Take a 10mm wrench and tighten up the bolt. That's snug. At this point, we're going to start the vehicle, and then we're going to let it run so that the engine warms up, and then we can adjust the timing with the timing light. All right, we're going to adjust the timing now. We're going to take our timing light, we're going to attach the black terminal to the negative on the battery and the red on the positive on the battery. And then this lead goes over the number 1 spark plug wire. So you just slide that on like that. Every timing light might be a little bit different. You want to make sure the engine is warmed up to full operating temperature. Before we actually check this, we're going to rev the engine a couple times. Let it balance out. Then we're going to disconnect these connectors on the throttle position sensor. Push down on that, disconnect that wire, and then disconnect this one as well. You're going to hear the idle change a little bit, and that's going to take the computer out of timing mode. I'm going to take the timing light and set it to 15 degrees before top dead center. As you can see right here, it says 15 degrees before top dead center. So that's where we want to set our timing. So now we can aim it down at the crank. As you can see, it's just about where it needs to be. It's off just a skosh. So to adjust that, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 12mm socket, a swivel, and an extension and a ratchet. We're going to loosen up this bolt on the distributor right here, just a little bit. And we're going to check this, and as we're checking it, we can rotate the distributor. Okay, so as you can see, we're looking at the second line from the left. That is top dead center. And because we have our timing light set to 15 degrees before top dead center, that's exactly where we want to be. So now I can tighten down the distributor. Snug that down. Recheck it just to make sure. And it looks like it's perfectly timed. Now I can remove my socket. I can reconnect the throttle position sensor. Put that in. Right. Now I can remove my timing light.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.